is Ian Macleod. I am the son of the legendary John Macleod, who founded Macski Waveskis in 1979. I have been designing Waveskis since 1991, and I also ride and compete at a competitive level. I won my first and only world title in 2014. I'm a US champion and a multiple South African champion. Well, one of the biggest highlights is when I won my world title. I became the third Macleod to win a world title. So my dad won 3 world titles. My brother won 1. My dad won 84, 86, and 96. My brother won 89. I won 2014. In that time of entering and going to world titles, I definitely had the opportunities, had the ability to cross the line, but it's extremely difficult to win a world title. And it took me a lot longer than my brother and my dad did. And that is a highlight because we're now the only family in the world that has 3 world champions in it. So that's one of my proud points. The other one would be definitely in 1996, I surfed the World Open final in Durban with my brother. So we attended the world titles over there. Alistair made a bit of a comeback. He had sort of semi-retired. He made a comeback in 96, and we went through in different sections, and we eventually met up in the final. And that was one of my highlights, to ride against my brother in the final. We got 3rd and 4th over there. He did beat me, yes. But it was definitely one of the highlights. The other highlights is that, when I shape boards, I look at the boards in the water and the performance of the boards. I just don't look at the board riding the wave and the person riding the wave. I look at the performance of the board. How is the water flow on the board? Is it pushing water? Is it slow? Can it? I'm redesigning the board in the water. I'm never happy with a board because I can always better a board. There's always the better board out there. It's never the perfect board. You've shaped it and you're trying to emulate that board. You're always striving to make a better board. And that, as a designer, for me, is the most important. I still have to get to the perfection. And perfect boards are always one step ahead of us. And we could ride the perfect board. We can win a world title on the board. Fantastic. But that's not the perfect board because there is still opportunity better on that board. Different waves. The waves come in different sizes. Waves come in different power. And so boards need to change. World titles last year were in Ventura in literally knee-high waves. And so the boards that people were designing were different. Next year, it's going to South Africa in Nahoon Reef, which is one of the most powerful waves that I've ever ridden. And I've ridden all over the world. This wave is intense power. So boards are going to bounce, and boards are going to, with the power of that wave, it's going to be a different game. And you're going to see different people coming to, heavier people like myself. I'm a heavier surfer, so heavier people have an advantage at Nahoon Reef at 10, 12 feet. Whereas the lighter people are going to bounce a lot. And so when they're doing their turns, you're going to have the boards being shaped perfectly, fins in the right places, the right amount of V to get hold on the wave. So it's going to be critical that the design of the boards, everybody that rode the board at the last Worlds definitely has to change their board. That's just one of the things that's going to have to happen. Waveskis are sit-down surfboards. You are strapped in at your hips and at your feet, traditionally. There are other methods to strap you in through thigh straps, which is not a permanent strap in, and those would go on the inside of your knees. So if you fall upside down, you're able to get out without unbuckling. The boards are designed to surf waves. It is a surf craft. It's designed to carry different weights, heights, abilities. So there's a vast range of different types of wave skis. And it all depends. That's why they are custom wave skis. It all depends on your ability, your age, your height, and your weight. The design of a wave ski is intense. there are different pivot points. There are different length of boards. The volumes can be spread out in different ways. The biggest mistake people make is buying a Waveski used and it's not made for them. So they won't be able to balance it because it might be too narrow and their weight just can't handle that. And so what they would do is they buy the board, they would go out and they would not be able to balance it, and they say, well, this is not for them. But they got the wrong equipment. That's my job, is to design something. Once we've finished discussing things, it's my job to get you onto the perfect Waveski for your ability, your age, your height, and your weight, or your disability. So if you have hip, knee, neck problems, if you have a broken back and you're paralyzed from hips down, or I can take that all into consideration and build you a customized Waveski. Waveskis are constructed out of EPS foam, which is expanded polystyrene. And the reason why we use expanded polystyrene is because it's light and it's easier to shape than the traditional polyurethane of a surfboard. We then have to use epoxy resins and traditional glass fibers. The average weight would be anything between 15 pounds and say about 18 pounds. But then there are, situations where I could use different materials. If you request, I could use carbon fibers, inegras, and I could get the weights down, but keeping the structural integrity of the board. Then I can get them down to like around about 12 pounds, all dependent on the actual size of the board. You could also request a heavier board with more glass fibers and resins so that they are stronger, and if you're a person that is a little bit heavy on your equipment. So when I design boards, I'm going to have a rocker stick. The rocker stick is a square piece of tubing that is immovable on its, it doesn't change, it's flat and straight, and I basically want to measure a board from the rocker stick, from the center of the board to the tail, and from the center of the board to the nose. That'll determine the rocker. The flatter that rocker, the faster the board, the harder it is to turn. And then I have to balance everything. So there's 3 types of rocker on a board. There's the centerline rocker, there's the rail line rocker, and there's the waterline rocker. And I have to make sure that all of these balance within one another to get the board out to do exactly what you're requesting. We consider things like fin placements, we consider things like pivot points, length of board, rail hardness, water entry, water exit, tail kick rocker, nose rocker, concaves, V's. I consider everything, and I've been able to do everything. I have over a choice of 60, 70 templates in the back that I can choose from and then modify. And then with my ability on a Waveski, that I know what I'm doing on a Waveski, I know what changes I make to a specific board, what they are going to do to the Waveski, because I'm there, I've done that before. So if you want a board that's maneuverable, I'm going to definitely increase the entry rocker and the exit rocker. I'm going to increase the V on the board. The pivoting points are going to be under the seat, and I'm going to take the fins and I'm going to put them in a position that are going to toe in a little bit more and slightly further forward on the board so that they are pivoty. So that's the nice thing about coming to the Macski brand, is that I've been making these boards for 30 something years, and I have over 60 templates that I can choose from and make you the perfect board, and know that the board that you're going to get has got the right amount of stability, the right amount of agility, the right amount of speed, the length, the width, all of those things, and I harmonize everything into one specific board. The most important thing is that I need to hear what you need out of the board, and then I will design that. It's easy for me to, the more information you give me, the more surf conditions, your age, your ability, and what you actually want to achieve on the sport, the easier it is for me to actually design a board. Okay, so the process would be, I get a block of styrofoam And I then look at what I need, and I choose the templates that would give me the best option on that. Sometimes I have to manipulate the templates, and I would use, say for argument's sake, I use a Raptor template, and then because it's for a specific person that wants to do really, really tight turns in the board, I'd increase the rocker, and then everything that I do on these boards and manipulate, I have records of. So if you come back to me in a year's time, or you say, I really love my board, but I would like you to change this, I need a little bit more speed, I could go to your records, see what I did. I could either toe the fins out, decrease the rocker. Then I could give you what you need. So every board that I make, the starting of the board would be start with the styrofoam, cut it out with a hot wire to get you your basic shape. And then from there, I would do everything by hand. A lot of my boards have got an anti-purling curve on the nose, because most of the nose is sticking out of the water and there's no performance there. So what I do is I actually put a little bit of a curve on the nose, lift the rails up, so it helps you climb white water. It helps you when you're landing your big airs or your big moves. It also helps you when you're paddling out through the wave to pop you over the wave. Instead of the water coming to the top of the board and pulling the nose down, it disperses away from the board. After I've shaped the board, I then glass fiber the board with epoxy. So I'd glass the bottom, wait for that to dry, flip it over, grind the edges, glass the top, sand that down where all the laps are. So on the bottom deck would be lapping over. And so I'd get rid of all the laps with the sandpaper and the machine, and then I'll put your first sanding coat down, epoxy sanding coat. That's when the color would then go on. I would then spray the color, spray the design, and then from there, I'd put the second layer of epoxy over the color. And then I would sand that back, get rid of all the imperfections, and put a sealer coat on. And that'll be the end product, and then I would fit it out and send it over to you. The reason why a lot of people don't put an epoxy coat over the color, but you have a paddle, and the paddle tends to hit the board. So my boards, you tend to have the paint stay on a lot longer because you're protected by a solid epoxy layer instead of just a clear coat of automotive paint. At the moment, the trend is broken surface. People that have got hip or knee or neck or shoulder injuries, where they are limited to, if they got hip and knee problems, they struggle to pop up and stand. If they've got neck problems, they struggle to lie in prone position for long periods of time. If they got shoulder issues, they just can't paddle a surfboard anymore. Those are the guys that are wanting to still surf a wave, but I'm able to design them a board that they can do the surfing with in a seated position, and that limits their injury, and it helps with their pain. I have a para-Olympian, Elena Nichols. She got injured in downhill snow skiing, and she broke her back, and she got paralyzed from the hips down. And she continued to be a sportswoman, a phenomenal sportswoman. She's won gold medal in wheelchair basketball, and she's won gold medal in downhill skiing, paralyzed downhill skiing. And she's the only woman in the world that has actually got a summer and a winter gold medal. She's now just recently won the world title as a sit surfer in the ISA World Adaptive Surfing event. This would not happen if she could not do her surfing without being in a seated position. So being seated has its advantages, And I have a range of people from, 85 that do the sport all the way down to, I've got young kids at 19, 18 that are riding my boards. If I'm designing a board, I always go to the extremes. So a board that has got extreme rocker will be a board that turns easily, but it's going to be pushing water, so it's going to be very slow. If I have a board that's like an ironing board, and it goes down the line extremely fast, but then it's going to struggle to do the turns. So my balance is to balance between what you're asking for. Do you want a board that you're just going to trim the waves and enjoy the freedom of riding down the line, or are you wanting to do tighter turns? And that's how I balance it, by using that concept in my head. The other concept that I use would be taking a sheet of wood that's 8 feet long, 4 feet wide, and 1 inch thick. The volume on that is set. It's how you put it in the water. You could put the board in the water and with its 4 feet width and 8 feet length and sit on it. That entire board is going to sink under the water, but it is going to be stable because any movement in your shoulder is going to be slow to react to the actual board that you're sitting on. You take the same board and the same volume and you now displace the water in a different way. You make the width 1 inch and the height 4 feet, and you sit on that. It's going to have more buoyancy pushback, but it's going to be incredibly difficult or impossible to balance. So that's, as a designer, those are my limitations. So that's where I think, a wide board is going to give you stability. A board with more height is going to give you more buoyancy and agility. So I've got to take all of that depending on your circumstances, your weight, your age, your height, the type of surf conditions, and I take that and put into one single board. Getting into the sport of wave ski surfing is a lot easier than getting into the sport of stand-up surfing, because you don't have to learn how to paddle and what position to sit, you lie your body in. You have a seat, you have feet, you get in. If you can balance the board, you'll be able to paddle out and within the first 10 minutes catch your first foam white water. Whereas in surfing, you have to learn how to do the pop-up, where to put your hands on the board, where to stand on the board, and it's really difficult to actually do all of those things and concentrate on that. It's harder to master wave ski surfing, but easier to get into. 80-85% of my riders are social surfers. So I have to consider, for a professional rider, we sit the board under the water, so it's under buoyant. We have the ability to balance almost anything. But novices, that's the one thing that they struggle with, is balance. And so my job is to make sure that they can balance the board so that they can have fun on the board and catch waves and ride waves and walk out the water knowing that they didn't have to struggle to balance the board, struggle to paddle out, fight with the board. They could just go out and have fun. So a large percentage of my clientele are definitely absolute, I would say, beginners to intermediate. But I can shape from an absolute beginner, first time, and I can shape for world champions and anything in between. The nice thing about what I do is that I own one world title. I've been in the top 10 most of my life in my competitive life in the world. Currently, I've slipped down because I formally retired from wave ski surfing, competitive wave ski surfing in June. And I've slipped down from 4 when I retired. I believe I'm 9th in the world, and that's ranking's just going to slip because I'm not riding anymore. I want to grow the sport of wave ski surfing in America. That is what my aim is to increase the knowledge of that there is a sport out there that you can sit and wave ski. Your career of surfing doesn't end because you have a shoulder injury. It doesn't end because you're paralyzed. It doesn't end because you cannot stand anymore. You can still surf waves. And that's what I want to get out to the public. I want to get out there and say there is this option. And I'm here to help with what you need. The other achievement that I'm really proud of is that me winning one world title on my own personal board, that's one thing. I have, and I'm not too sure of the exact number, but it's around about 25, 26 world titles of other people riding my boards. So over the period of from 1991, I have people like Adrian Vos, Tracy Sasson, John Macleod. I have, new people in the sport like Lou Peter, Kieran Davis, that has been a long-time rider, has won world titles on my boards. And those are proud moments for me as a designer, because I know I designed that board. I know that board was designed for that specific rider to win that specific world title. Like Kieran Davis knew that he's never ridden one of my boards before, and in 2014 he knew that I knew the South African conditions, and he came to me as the shaper for the first time, shaped the board, he took delivery of the board, he rode it for 2 weeks, and he won a world title. Purely because the board that was shaped for that specific wave. And Kieran has the ability to go and win a world title, but he needs the right equipment for the right waves. So currently what I concentrate on is making boards for the USA. I have Ann Stott, who is a business partner of mine down in South Africa, who makes for the rest of the world, South Africa, Europe, but I concentrate mainly on the United States of America. When you get a board from Macski, you're getting a board from Ian Macleod, 100% from me. If you do want a board from me, and you specifically want Ian Macleod to shape your board, that is possible, and I do ship all over the world. To get a Waveski from Macski is just go onto the website. You can just fill out the form that's on the website over there, and then I'll make contact. I will personally make contact with you, and then we could go through your needs.